Good day everyone, my name is Pete Molati. In this session we are going to discuss problems involving distance, time, proportion, parity and averages. I will also be introducing you to some of the important principles that you might want to use when you solve this type of problems and some important formulae that are applicable to this type of problems. Now, the first problem says water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius and boils at 100 degrees Celsius. I'm sure most of us know that by now. And on the SAMO scale, water freezes at 20 degrees and boils at 170 degrees. The two scales are linearly related. Now, that's an important piece of information. Okay. So what is the temperature on the SAMO scale if it is 80 degrees Celsius on the Celsius scale? Okay, so we will start by having two x's. Okay, the y and the x. Okay, if we call the y-axis the SAMO and the x-axis the Celsius. Okay, so we know that we have a point somewhere here that on the Celsius scale will be 0, but on the SAMO scale is 20, right? And we have a straight line, it looks something like that. And somewhere at the top there we have another point. On the Celsius scale, it will read 100, but on the SAMO scale, that will be 170. And somewhere here, we also have another point that is 80 on the Celsius, and we need to find out what that point is on the SAMO scale. Now, what we have here is what we call collinear points, okay? And if you remember, collinear points are just points that lie on the same straight line, okay? And they have the property that the gradient is constant, is uniform between any 2 points here, okay? So we have all the information in this point and this point. We will use those 2 points to find the gradient, and that gradient will help us find the value of y, which is the temperature on the SAMO scale if it is 80 on the Celsius scale. Okay, so let's do that. Now, we will use the formula for gradient, which is what? y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. Okay, now we will say what? 170 minus 20 divided by 100 minus 0 must be equal to y minus 20 divided by 80 minus 0. Okay, now solving for y, we get here 150, which is 170 minus 20 divided by 100 will be equals to y minus 20 divided by 80. Multiply both sides by 80, we get 150 over 100 multiplied by 80 will be equals to y minus 20, and that can cancel with that, and 15 multiplied by 8 will give us 120, which is equals to y minus 20, and therefore our answer here will be y equals to 140. Okay, so we get 140. The next problem says 6 numbers are represented by A, B, C, D, E, and F. The average of A, B, C, and D is 10. The average of B, C, D, E, and F is 14. If F is twice the value of A, calculate the average of A and E. Okay, now before we answer this problem, it's important to note that when calculating the average is equal to the sum of the values divided by the number of values. Okay, so that means that the sum of values by algebra will be equals to the average multiplied by the number of values. Now, this is an important formula that we are going to use a lot. Okay, you must remember that the sum of values is equals to the average multiplied by the number of values. Now, let's write the information that we have from this problem. We know that A plus B plus C plus D is equals to the average 10 multiplied by how many numbers are there. So there's 4 numbers, which is multiplied by 4. This will be equals to 40. And the next piece of information is here where they tell us that the average of B, C, D, E, and F is 40. Now we are going to do the same thing. So B plus C plus D plus E and plus F will be equals to 14. How many numbers are there? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So multiplied by 5. So 14 times 5 is equal to 70. Okay. Now we have our 2 equations here. So there's 2 ways in which we can solve this problem. First of all, we know that they told us that F is actually equals to twice A. So we can substitute that into the second equation. So I'm going to name that equation 1 and name that equation 2. So you can substitute that into equation 2. And then we would have B plus C plus D plus E plus 2A is equals to 70. Okay, so I just want to write A as A plus A. Remember, 2A basically just equals to A plus A. Okay, so I'm going to write the first A at the beginning. So A plus B plus C plus D plus another A plus E is equals to 70. So what we see here is that this part of equation 2 is actually the same as the left-hand side of equation 1. So immediately we can substitute this whole thing here with 40 because we know that A plus B plus C plus D is actually equals to 40 from equation 1. And then this will be what? This will be 40 plus A plus E is equals to 70. And if we solve, A plus E is equals to 70 minus 40, which is equals to 30. Okay. However, what the question wants is that they say calculate the average of A and E. So the question wants A plus E divided by 2. Remember, we want the average of A and E. But we know that A plus E is equals to 30. That means we can substitute A plus E here with 30. And this will be equals to 30 divided by 2, which our answer will be 15. Okay. So one could have taken a different route maybe and say, since we know that this is also a representation of equation 2 in a way, this also represents 2 is the same as that. So this is actually the same as that. So you can write equation 2. Sorry, let me just write an alternate solution here. We can say A plus B plus C plus D plus A plus E is equals to 70. And equation 1 was A plus B plus C plus D is equals to 40. And you take equation 2 minus equation 1. Okay, in this case, remember, this is our equation 2, and we want to subtract equation 1 from 2. So, A minus A, the A's will cancel, B minus B will cancel, C minus C will cancel, D minus D will cancel, and what we are left with on the left-hand side will be A plus E is equals to 70 minus 40, which will be 30. And this takes us to this step here, where we can continue to solve for the average of A and E, and we still get 15. Okay. Next question says the ages of Tim and Nomusa are in the ratio of 3:4. 15 years from now, their ages will be in the ratio of 4:5. Question says, what is Tim's present age? Okay. Now, if we are given a ratio 3:4, it's important to remember that this is the same as 3/4. And 3/4 has infinite number of possibilities. It can be 6/8. It can be 9/12. It could be 12/16, and so on. Okay, so now we will assume for now that they are now ages, or they are current ages. Tim is actually equals to 3x years, and Nomusa is equals to 4x years. So in 15 years, Tim will be 3x plus 15 years old. Only makes sense if it's 3x years now. After 15 years, it will be 3x plus 15. Okay, and Nomusa will also be 4x plus 15 years. Okay, now it continues to say their ages after 15 years will be in the ratio of 4:5. Remember, 4:5 is the same as 4 divided by 5. So we define an equation now, because we know Tim's age, which is 3x plus 15, divided by Nomusa's age, which is 4x plus 15, will actually be equal to 4/5. Okay, because that is in 15 years. In 15 years, their ages will be that, and they told us that it will be in the ratio of 4/5. Now, we need to calculate x. Okay, so cross multiply. We have 5 multiplied by 3x plus 15, which is equals to 4 multiplied by 4x plus 15. If we distribute the 5 here, we get 5 times 3x, which is 15x. 5 times 15, which is 75. And this will be equals to 4 times 4, 16x. And 4 times 15, which is 60. Take the 15x that side, the 60 that side, and we end up with 16x minus 15x is equals to 75 minus 60, and we get x is equals to 15. But we know that Tim's age, or Tim's current age, is actually equals to 3x. So substitute x there, and we get Tim's age will be equals to 3 multiplied by 15, and our final answer would be Tim's age is 45 years. Okay, so that's it. Using algebra was the most effective way of solving this ratio problem. The next question says, before his last maths test, Sunil's average was 33%. In his last test, he scored 40%, which increased his average to 34%. What must he score in the next test to increase his average to 35%? Okay, so we must remember our important formula that the sum of the values will be equals to the average multiplied by the number of values. Very important formula, and we must remember it all the time when we're dealing with averages. Okay, so assuming that Sunil wrote n tests, so the sum of the first n tests will be equals to the average, which is 33%, multiplied by n tests. Okay, and then the next bit of information says, in his last test, he scored 40%, and this increased his average to 34. So, on his first n test, or adding to his first n test, he wrote another test and scored 40%, and then the average will now be 34%, but the sum of the values will be 34 multiplied by the number of values is now n plus 1 because he wrote one extra test. Okay, so now if we look at this two, we have two unknowns and two equations, meaning we can solve for n and the sum of the first n tests. Okay, so let's simplify the second equation further. We will get Sn plus 40 is equals to distribute the 34, so 34n plus 34, and Sn can now be equals to 34n, and 34 minus 40 is minus 6. Okay, so now these two equations are both equals to Sn, which means we can equate them to each other. So we get 33n will be equals to 34n minus 6. And if we calculate that, we get n is equals to 6. So this means that in the beginning, Sunil wrote 6 tests that gave him an average of 33. Okay. And if we want, we can also calculate Sn by substituting the 6 into this equation here so that we can get the sum of the first 6 tests. So the sum of the first 6 tests will be equals to 33 multiplied by 6, which is equal to 366. And this will be equals to 198. Okay, now we have n and we have Sn. Now, it says, what must he score in the next test to increase his average to 35%? Okay, so we know that in the beginning he wrote tests that the sum of the tests was 198. Wrote another test after that whereby he scored 40%, and now he wants to write the last test. Okay, if we take the average, this should be divided by the number of values. So for 198, that was for 6 tests, and one test whereby he scored 40, and the other one that he wants to write to make his average what? 35%. And now from here, we need to solve for x. Okay, so 198 plus 40 is 238. So we get 238 plus x divided by 6 plus 1 divided by 8 is equals to 35. And 238 plus x will be equals to 35 times 8, which is 280. And if we calculate x, we'll get 280 minus 238, and that will give us 42, meaning Sunil must score 42% in his last test in order for him to achieve an average of 35%. Okay, so when we're dealing with averages, that formula there is very important. If you take that formula, substitute the values that you know, and then you use some algebra manipulation in the process. Okay, the next question says, the average age of teachers at an institution is 35 years, and the average age of its professors is 50 years. If the average age of teachers and professors together is 40 years, what is the ratio of the number of teachers to the number of professors? Okay, so we are going to assume that in this institution we have X teachers and we have Y professors. Okay, so the sum of the ages of teachers should be the average age of teachers multiplied by how many teachers are there. And the sum of the ages of professors will be equals to the average age of professors multiplied by how many professors are there. Okay, now it continues to say, if the average age of teachers and professors together is 40 years, what is the ratio of the number of teachers to the number of professors? So what this question is looking for is for you to find the ratio of X over Y, which will be the number of teachers divided by the number of professors in this institution. Okay, so they told us that if we take the sum of the ages of teachers plus the sum of the ages of professors divided by the number of teachers and professors, then the average will be 40. Okay, so that's the average age of teachers and professors combined. Okay, so from here, I multiply both sides by x plus y, then I get 35x plus 50y is equals to 40x plus 40y. Okay, so group the x together and the y's together, then I end up with 40x minus 35x is equals to 50y minus 40y. Okay, let's simplify this further. We get 5x is equals to 10y. Okay, so divide both sides by 5y, and then we get x over y is equals to 10 over 5, and that is equals to 2, which is our answer. So the ratio of the number of teachers to the number of professors is equal to 2. This one says 30 liters of a certain fruit juice contains 6% pure juice concentrate mixed in water. Another 20 liters is made using 5% pure juice concentrate. When both these mixtures are poured into a single container, what is the percentage of pure juice concentrate in the mixture? Okay, so we have the first container, which is 30 liters and contains 6% of pure juice concentrate. The next container, which is 20 liters, contains 5% pure juice concentrate. Now we want to calculate how much pure juice is in each of these containers. Now, for this, we know 6% means 6 over 100 multiplied by 30. Okay, so 0 here cancels 0, and we have 18 over 10, which is equal to 1.8 liters of pure juice. And here the same thing, we have 5 over 100 multiplied by 20, 0 cancels 0, and we end up with 10 over 10, which we have 1 liter of pure juice. Okay, now we want to mix these two containers together. So we want to mix these two containers together into that one, which is going to be a bigger container, and this container will contain 30 liters plus 20 liters and 1.8 liters of pure juice plus 1 liter of pure juice. And the question says we want to find the percentage of pure juice concentrate now in the mixture. So we will add 1.8 plus 1, and this must be divided by the total, which will be 30 plus 20. Okay, but we need to multiply this by 100 since we want the percentage, and this will be equals to 1.8 plus 1 is 2.8 divided by 50 multiplied by 100, so that cancels that. 10 divided by 5 is 2, so we get 2.8 multiplied by 2, which this will give us 5.6% as our answer. Okay, this one was a little easier, I think. For most of you that are taking science, I'm sure you found this even more easier. Okay. Next question says, a train 1 kilometer in length is traveling at a constant speed of 20 kilometers per hour. At precisely 1 o'clock, the train enters a tunnel 1 kilometer long. So at what time does the train leave the tunnel? Now let's try to get a picture of the scenario here. Now, looking at the scenario we have here, we've been told that the train is 1 kilometer long and the tunnel is also 1 kilometer long. Okay, so if we take the point here, let's say we take a point at the back of the train and we call it point B, the back of the train. Now this point must actually move 1 kilometer from here to here and move another kilometer from here until it's completely out of the tunnel there. So this point B alone, it has to move 1 kilometer plus 1 kilometer, meaning it will move 2 kilometers for the train to be completely out of the tunnel. So that actually means the train will have to move a total distance of 2 kilometers. Okay, now when dealing with speed questions, we must remember the formula. Speed is equals to distance over time. Okay, so we can manipulate this formula any way we want. Okay, so in this case, we want to find the time, so we can manipulate this into time is equals to distance over speed. Okay, and our distance, the train must move 2 kilometers divided by the speed of 20 kilometers per hour, and that gives us an answer of 1/10 hours. So since this is obviously less than an hour, we need to take this to minutes because we need to calculate at what time does the train leave the tunnel. So we multiply this by 60 to take it to minutes, and we get 6 minutes. So precisely at 13:06, the train will leave the tunnel. Okay. Next question says the sum of two consecutive numbers is s. What is the difference in terms of s between the square of the larger number and the square of the smaller number? Now they defined s for us as the sum of two consecutive numbers. So if I take the smaller number to be n, that means the one after n will be n plus 1, since these two numbers are consecutive. So s is equal to 2n plus 1. Okay, now we need to find the difference between the squares of this number. So the larger number will be n plus 1 squared minus the smaller number squared, which is n squared. If we multiply this out here, we get n squared plus 2n plus 1, and we are subtracting n squared, and then this will be equal to 2n plus 1. And what is 2n plus 1? 2n plus 1 is basically our s. So in terms of s, the difference between the square of two consecutive integers or consecutive numbers will just be equals to s as the answer. Next problem says Gert was jogging at a constant speed of 10 km per hour along a straight road. Pete, jogging at a constant speed of 12 km per hour, is 600 meters behind Gert. How many minutes will it take Pete to catch up to, or to catch up with Gert? Okay, so before we start answering this question, or before we start analyzing it, I just want to mention something with regards to speed. Assume that there's a car here, car A, moving at 100 kilometers per hour, and there's another car B moving at 80 kilometers per hour. Okay. Now the person sitting here at car B, he sees car A approaching him at 20 kilometers per hour. Okay, it seems as if the car is coming towards him. So relative to the person in car B, car A is actually moving at 20 kilometers per hour. Okay, so if car A is approaching B, B sees A as moving towards him by a rate of 20 kilometers per hour. Okay, so the same is true with cars that are coming towards each other. Okay, if A is coming at 100 kilometers per hour and B is going towards A at 80 kilometers per hour. So a person sitting at B sees A coming at a speed of 180 kilometers an hour. Okay, yeah, so that is a most important principle that you must think of when we deal with speed. So now going back to our question, we have Pete here. Just gonna call him P, jogging at 12 kilometers per hour, and we have Gert there jogging at 10 kilometers per hour. Okay, and the distance between them is 600 meters. Now, relative to Gert, Pete seems to be approaching Gert at a rate of 2 kilometers per hour. okay, relative to Gert. Okay, so this makes our calculation easier because speed will actually cover this distance of 600 meters at a rate of 2 kilometers an hour. Okay, so when we deal with distance, speed, and time, we always use the formula. Speed is equals to distance over time. And we can manipulate it however, meaning if you want to calculate time, time will equals to distance over speed. If we calculate distance, it's just equals to speed multiplied by time. Okay, now in this scenario, we want to calculate time. So we will use the equation, this one here. So our time will be equals to the distance. Remember, the distance should be in kilometers because our speed is given in kilometers an hour. So in kilometers, this is just 0.6 kilometers. If we convert meters to kilometer, we just divide by 1,000. So the time will be equals to the distance, which is 0.6 kilometers, divided by the speed, which is 2 kilometers an hour. We are only considering the speed relative to Gert. Okay, so this will be equals to 0.3 hours. Okay, which is the same as 3 over 10 hours. If we multiply this by 60 and take it to minutes, we got 0 cancelling 0 there, and we get 3 times 6, which is 18 minutes. Okay, now I just want to discuss the second approach to this question. Okay, might be important to you sometime in the future. Now, let's redraw the scenario. We have speed here at 12 kilometers an hour, and we have Gert here. So this is speed, this is Gert, moving at 10 kilometers per hour. So let's assume there's another point there and we call it N. So there should be a certain distance. So after Pete runs a certain distance, he will meet Gert at point N, or Gert will meet up with Pete. Pete will catch up with Gert at point N, however you want to explain it. So Gert is a certain distance X kilometers away from N. Now, Pete has to cover a distance of, remember that was 0.6 kilometers. So Pete has to cover 0.6 plus X for him to catch up with Gert at point N. But Gert only has to cover X kilometers until Pete catches up with him. Okay, so the interesting part here is that the time it will take Pete to catch up to Gert is equals to the time it will take Gert to get to point N. Okay, now if we use these equations and substitute our values, time is equals to distance over speed. Pete had to cover a distance of 0.6 plus X divided by the speed of 12, and Gert only has to cover X kilometers with his speed of 10 kilometers per hour. So if we calculate X here, remember X will be the distance that Gert would have covered when Pete catches up to him. Okay, so let's calculate X. Now, cross multiply, we get 6 plus 10x will be equals to 12x, and we get 2x is equals to 6, where x is equals to 3. So if we substitute x, remember this is the same thing here. So to calculate the time it takes Pete to catch up to Gert, t will be equals to, substitute x here, it will be 3 over 10, but remember this is in hours. To take it to minutes is 3 over 10 multiplied by 60, and we still get 18 minutes. Okay, so Gert, after Gert runs 3 kilometers, Piet will catch up to him, or Piet has to run a distance of 3.6 kilometers at that rate or at that speed so that he can catch up to Gert.